destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
What's going on? You are listening to TWIG, otherwise known as the flagship of stupidity. I'm one of your hosts this week. I'm Mike the Birdman Dodd, but I'm not alone as I trek into the world of the weird, strange, usually nerdy news that we cover on this show. I'm joined with...
Alex.
Hey, Winter decided to show up. It can fuck right off.
We got about a foot.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this because, as many of you know, I drive an electric wheelchair due to my amputation, so getting around in this is going to be near impossible. Not looking forward to this.
Roads are a bit slick because it's packing snow from what I hear right now, and it's a little wet underneath. So not that it's bad, it's just people are driving like Americans right now.
It's that first day where nobody knows how to drive, and then as the week goes on, they learn.
Yeah, everybody's been out, and everybody's shoveled and snowplowed their areas around here. The streets aren't done yet, so I'm predicting we're going to be hearing the trucks moving around at nighttime, and we'll probably have it all salted by morning.
Yeah, that's what we're kind of hoping around here. Blair has already run her errands for the day. She says the main roads are okay, the side streets not so much. So kind of glad I didn't have to go out today. I was supposed to have some kind of a doctor's appointment, but we're able to reschedule that. So thank God for that.
Yeah, and if anybody, was wondering, like, what do you do in these sorts of situations? That's what we have Amazon for if you have to get your necessities. Like, I ordered flour and, like, baking powder. We're going to be making our own bread and everything here, so I don't have to go out and get it. Stocked up on eggs the other day, just so I don't have to go outside in the weather for the next couple of days, because it's all going to melt by, like, Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, so that'll be nice to be able to get back to fall-ish weather, but it's November. This is what we've come to expect. It is Canada. So as we do today's show, it is Remembrance Day, so hopefully you've had a chance to observe and kind of think about the things that have happened around the world since the world wars have happened, obviously with the armistice with the first World War and November 11th being a very significant day across world history.
And I hope all of you people are wearing your poppies.
Yes, to talk about the elephant in the room. As of we're recording this show, it is being reported across multiple news outlets that Canadian quote-unquote institution of Hockey Night in Canada, Don Cherry, has been fired or is immediately stepping down. And to that I say, thank God, you racist old prick. I used to really like Coach's Corner growing up. I used to watch Hockey Night in Canada on CBC for a number of years. Haven't really watched it since it switched over to Sportsnet. And you haven't been relevant for years. Your attitude is out of touch, to say the very least. And I know Canadian NDP leader Jagmeet Singh posted a really smart response to quote-unquote you people. Posted a photo of his father who fought in the his grandfather who fought in the First World War and the Second World War, and kind of went into the history of how the Sikh people were helping. Then there's I posted something the other day about Indigenous Veterans Day, and as with Remembrance Day, it's about all soldiers and all contributions that have been made throughout the war efforts for the freedoms that we do enjoy in our country today. But just make sure you're observing it. And now we have one less douchebag on the air to clutter up. And I guess we'll see what the fallout from this is going to be, because I wonder what's going to happen now with the Saturday night hockey broadcast. Let's just say I would not want to be that producer today figuring that out for Saturday night. So we'll wait and see. So as we often do, we typically talk about what we've been doing with each other's weeks, kind of leading up to the show. This week for me has been eventful, to say the very least. Dr. Wiley, my little precious little black boy kitty, unfortunately had to go to the emergency vet yesterday because he was stopped up. He was very badly constipated. He had some kind of an intestinal blockage. Thankfully, he's okay. So we took him to the emergency vet. Several $100s later, he got an enema, but he came home. He fell right asleep. He's been walking around to the different people in the apartment, me, Blair, and Shannon, and just kind of sleeping wherever he could. But it was really scary because on Sunday morning when we noticed the problem, he was hiding in a pile of blankets, and we're thinking, okay, that's a little weird. We pick him up, and he's just trembling and shaking. And then at one point, Blair picked him up and he started growling. We're thinking, okay, this is fucked up and wrong. So we called the vet. We took him in. And Blair didn't get home till 5 o'clock that day. But thankfully, he's okay. He's on the mend. He has to take some new medication for probably the rest of his life. And he's on new food, which he seems to love. So thankfully, he's okay. Because as anybody who's followed this show for pretty much since Wiley's been in my life over the last 8.5 years, knows he is my world, he is my life, and I'm thankful that he's okay. Other than that, though, it's been relatively quiet. I spent the last week and a half playing through some of my reviews, which you're going to hear today. I'll be reviewing Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Nintendo Switch, as well as a pair of Sega Ages titles by Sega and M2. I'll be reviewing Ichidant-R and Columns 2, which should really be more of a misnomer because there are 2 games included in that collection. As you get Columns 1 for the Genesis, and you get Columns 2, the arcade game. I didn't even know Columns was in the arcade. But then again, where I'm from, we didn't necessarily have the best arcade selection. We had more Capcom games as opposed to anything else. I don't remember a lot of Sega arcade games outside of I think we had Altered Beast and Golden Axe. Those are the 2 ones I remember from the fall fair. But anyway, what about you? What has your week been consisting of?
Well, my week has been picked up the Pokemon Nintendo Switch Lite. I don't even know why they call it a Nintendo Switch if it can't switch between portable and docked. It's basically the Game Boy. And it's pretty cool. It took me a while to load up all the games that I have on it and re-download all of my cloud save files and everything. But it's up and running and works pretty sweet. Has better battery life, so I've been playing around with that. I've been playing a lot of Death Stranding, which has been a little divisive with some people. I'm guessing it's people that are so used to how, I guess, I'm just going to say this in quotes, regular games work, if that makes any sense. This is a very unique title. If I wanted to give it a bit of a one-line description, it's I guess Billy Goat the delivery game, because you're constantly climbing mountains and delivering things while experiencing these dark and twisted, weird, fantastical lore and story, and it's probably the best looking game on the PS4 currently, but I am nowhere near finished. I'll be done. My review should be coming out for the next week's show.
Have you encountered Conan O'Brien yet?
No, but Guillermo del Toro is a central figure in the game.
Okay.
He's basically, he plays a doctor who is pretty much your main narrator / confidant in the game. When you're going from place to place to connect everything through a network, and he's the main voice that helps you out throughout it. He communicates through you wirelessly and everything. So I thought he was going to be a cameo, but he appears to be one of the top 3 or 4 main characters. That, and what they didn't show is your mother in the game is played by the Bionic Woman, Lindsay Wagner.
Okay.
And all the actors are fully facially modeled to be who they are. And the first hour and maybe hour and a half of the game itself is like a title sequence. You remember Metal Gear Solid 4 where you start out and you can't tell, like you're like, here's a cutscene, and then you realize you're actually playing in the game already. Mm-hmm. It's like that. So the more you do in that hour, it will dynamically bring up the title cards.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's really neat. Like we're getting to the point where he's probably just going to start directing actual movies.
Yeah, I think that's what they said Kojima Productions wants to move into, is actually making movies. I mean, hell, if we can get the Metal Gear movie started any time now.
Well, won't be him.
Yeah.
Won't be him unless they're desperate. But Death Stranding would be too difficult to do, I think, as a movie. But he has the chops now. He's working with... Well, all he'd have to do is he probably wouldn't be given the green light to direct a $100 million movie on his own. But all he'd have to do is co-direct with Guillermo, who's won an Oscar, you know what I mean? And he's really good friends with him. So Del Toro and him working together on a movie or a TV show would be fantastic. Other than that, it's been just a lot of catching up. Like there were so many different games and movies that I reviewed in the last 2 weeks that I took a few days to just sort of relax. I did end up going to see Terminator, which I liked, and I just saw Dr. Sleep, which was fantastic.
That's the only movie. I know it's a Stephen King thing. I know it's a sequel to The Shining. I've got no interest in it, though. I'm going to wait until it comes out.
It's better than It and It 2, significantly.
That's a pretty tall thing, and I don't know. I don't care. None of the marketing has made it appealing.
When was the last time you saw brutal torture and killing of children on camera?
It 2?
I mean... cutting a kid's neck open, making him scream more so that they can suck the life essence out of him while he watches his own blood spray out of him.
Well, that's so oddly specific.
Yes, that's in that. That's in the movie, and like it's literally like what they don't explain in the trailers is it takes place. You know, it jumps forward in the future. I'm not going to spoil any plot, but just the basic setup. It's about a roaming group of gypsies, basically like they are in like a caravan of like RVs, and they sense people that have the power of the Shining, and they sense children, and they go around and they torture, maim, and eventually ritualistically kill the children to suck their life essence out. And Danny from The Shining is connected to a little girl, and they're trying to stop it.
Yeah, like I've read the plot synopsis, and I was talking to a friend of mine who got into a preview screening of it, and she said, it's okay, it's a good movie if you like fan fiction. This is like Shining fan fiction. That's not a bad thing.
It 2 was not nearly as good as this. It 1 was probably about as good. But we're having a resurgence of Stephen King movies because they're taking them serious, and this is a hard R rating. Even though it's rated,
but
like,
didn't this movie? But 14, this movie didn't do well at the box office.
It's 14.
It bombed.
It only opened on Friday, so it's still yet to be seen because it is an R rating in the States. It's PG-13 here because everything here is more lenient. I saw it in the theater it was me and then like 6 kids that were like 13 or younger with one parent, and I'm thinking this isn't going to be good for them. And like they had no idea that this was a sequel. I could hear it was getting my blood boiling. And then I hear basically as soon as the naked bathtub old lady demon gets on screen, like the mom is like, cover your eyes, children. And I'm thinking, why the fuck did you bring them here? Oh, what, you don't want to see a naked old lady in the bathtub coming after the main characters to kill them? What, that's too scary for you? Maybe you should have thought about what movie you were going to go see.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Because it's not like they kind of get what they're seeing. So, before we get into the show proper, I saw Terminator this past week. I went and saw it with stars and strollers. So, turns out there was an afternoon matinee where I'm from, which is kind of weird. So I went there and I had 2 things happen. And this should have been an indication of things to come. So me and Blair go towards the door. I'm in my wheelchair, driving up towards the door, and this old couple cuts in front of me as if to rush past me. And then they huff at me. They're like, huh, like that. And then they rush around the door so they don't have to hold the door open for me. And Blair had to talk me down off a ledge for telling these old motherfuckers off. And I'm not talking old like 40s, even 50s. No, these were people in their fucking 60s. So these people fucking knew better. So I posted about this on Facebook this week, and I really wanted to say, oh, listen here, you old cocksucker. I really should have made a scene, but I didn't. But then I went and saw Terminator Dark Fate, which is weird when you go to a Stars and Strollers showing.
Only done it once.
The volume is a little lower, and the lights are still on. So that was a little weird.
And they throw the dynamic range of the music way down to like midnight mode, so nothing is way louder than anything else, which can be good
it was a little strange.
If you have audio like sensory issues. The theater near me, which isn't a Cineplex, like I went to a Landmark, which is the main competitor. They don't just do Stars and Strollers; they actually do a sensory. I forget what they call it. It's basically for people specifically that they market on the spectrum, where you might have sensitivities to flashing lights or loud sounds or that sort of thing. And they dim. It's very similarly dimmed, but they also they allow you to talk throughout the film if you need somebody to help like interpret things to you. It has subtitles on the screen, and then it has like you can get those hearing aid devices if you're hard of hearing for it too, with descriptive video. It's basically like every accessibility thing turned on at once, and they usually do 1 or 2 showings of that per movie. They'll do it at like 10 in the morning on like a Monday or something. So there are specific days for it, but I get that they do that, and it's important. And the difference there is they don't allow the strollers there for that one because it's specifically for people with sensitivity issues.
Yeah, we had one baby in ours, and that baby was quiet the whole time, other than one giggle at one point. So I saw Terminator, and in short, the best part of it was Sarah Connor. It is the best sequel since Terminator 2, though that bar is not set particularly high. Blasphemy here, I enjoyed Genesis a little bit better, but I liked some of the ideas in this.
I enjoyed them but equally.
So I hope this isn't the way the franchise dies, because this is not a good way for the T800 Model 101 to go out on. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, yeah. I thought Grace was okay, but she wasn't as charming as Kyle Reese. But Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton, was fucking wonderful in this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed her. And the woman who plays Danny, she's not as cool as John Connor, but I like the idea that she raised. There's one quote in there that she talks about raising scavengers into a militia into an army into a resistance. I really enjoyed that line, how she rallies them to fight back against Legion. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
There just wasn't the iconic moment of her standing on top of like an HK with like a machine gun raised or something like that.
But I guess it's supposed to be more like, it's a resistance, but more guerrilla warfare because of the whole Southern American connection. So it looked like a slightly different type of army, and it didn't look like they were fighting in the States. It looked like they were fighting in South America.
So yeah. One
last thing. I ended up getting tickets. I used all of those free passes and everything I've had since the summer of free movies. I used up them all now. I've got a ticket to go see Frozen 2 on the second day that it's out, not the Thursday opening, because that's probably going to sell out. But I'm seeing it on the Friday in IMAX. I got to finally use my Marvel Disney ticket, and then I got a ticket paid for to go see the Star Wars movie on the Friday it comes out. So basically every 2 to 3 weeks from now, I'm seeing something in IMAX. And then I still have one more free movie using my points. So I'm probably going to go see like Knives Out or something. Are there any other things you're looking forward to movie-wise this year?
Cats, and only because I want to see how much of a horror show it is.
Oh, God. That's one of those movies where if you ended up finding yourself like a like Chinese...
Lonely and alone.
Like a Chinese cam copy or Russian cam copy online on like one of those CD websites, it would still not look as bad as it would in theaters. Because somehow blurring it out with the really washed out camcorder footage would probably make the CG look better.
So anyway, guys, we got a lot of stuff to talk about on this week's show. We got a lot of really interesting news stories from canceled 3DS games that may be coming to the Switch. Something that's happening in China I didn't even know about. Killer robots. And, of course, the weird and wacky news. And Joe Pesci's making a comeback. And you may have voted an X-Men into a position of power if you're Canadian. So we'll be back, guys, right here on This Week in Geek, and we're going to start things off with my review of Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Nintendo Switch. We are talking about Luigi's Mansion 3 exclusively for the Nintendo Switch, and this is a game franchise I've always had kind of an interest in. I mean, there was the original GameCube release way back when. There was the 3DS title, which got me into the series, and then when I found out this game was coming out on the Switch, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll jump back into the franchise, as now I can play it on a large TV. I'll have a Pro controller. It'll be a more comfortable experience for me. And I gotta say, I am not disappointed in what I've played. So the setup for this game is kind of simple. You, Mario, Princess Peach, and a bunch of toads get invited to the Last Resort Hotel, and your host, Helena Gravely, I think her name is, basically sets you up for shenanigans, and King Boo, the King Ghost, basically wants to trap you, being Luigi, into these portraits, and basically the end of the Mushroom Kingdom as we know it, basically the setup for any Mario game. And it's presented in a really cartoony and fun fashion. If this game does anything right, it's its presentation. The game looks gorgeous. Now, I only did play this in docked mode, just because it's easier for me with my disability. But I love the way that it's cartoony, it's bright, the cutscenes are frequent, and because it is that bright and cartoony look, everything looks like Pixar quality animation, and it really suits it. In fact, why is there not a Mario Brothers animated show? I really wonder that in 2019. But point of the matter is, so you team up with Professor Egad, who got kidnapped earlier, and he gives you the Poltergust, which is the ghost-sucking vacuum cleaner. Polterpup also helps you. The fact that Luigi has a ghost dog is kind of fun, too. But it's up to you to clear from the basement to the penthouse of this incredibly weird hotel, which randomly has themed levels after, like, pretty much anything you can imagine is here. There's incredibly cool boss fights in this. There's, like, a dinosaur. There's, like... One of my favorite ones is actually a really early boss fight. You're fighting a chef, and you have to suck the smoke out of the kitchen using the poltergust before you can fight him. And the reason I like that is because of a new mechanic in this game with you have a partner, which someone can play cooperatively with you once you unlock him, is Luigi. And Luigi is a clone of you made out of ectoplasm who can pretty much do the same things you can do. He has a limited health meter, but if he ever touches water or fire, he dies instantly. But you both suck the smoke out of the kitchen, and it reveals this ghost chef. But anyway, he can also help you solve the puzzles. You can do these by yourself with Luigi's help. You just have to press, I think it's left trigger twice and he appears, or right trigger. And Luigi is controllable by you, while the other one can act independently. It's a system, you'll get used to it pretty easy. That being said, this is a puzzle action game, so don't expect like jumping around on things, but you use the poltergust essentially to suck up ghosts, and you can slam them into each other, which is a mechanic very reminiscent of the Ghostbusters video game. In fact, I'd kind of wonder if that got stolen, or maybe I wonder if Luigi's Mansion did it first. I don't know. Either way, it's still a lot of fun, because if you get a ghost and you slam them into a group of them, you can take out a whole crap ton of ghosts at once, which is more fun than I thought it actually would be. And then there's also hidden jewels you can find. There's hidden boo ghosts you can find. And as you clear, there's like, I think 15 or 17 levels of this hotel. You do uncover more and more things. And it's a fun experience overall. I mean, the game should take you at least 10 plus hours to go through, especially more if you start looking for every little hidden thing. And more often than not, if you're willing to take a risk on something, like, hey, I can maybe use my suction shot to pry that door open, or maybe if I suck up my those curtains, maybe it'll reveal something. So be investigative, and more often than not, you'll be rewarded, I find. However, there are some negatives with this game. The game can get frustrating at times. Some of the puzzles are a little bit obtuse. Even I had to ask people that have already beat this, how the hell do I do this? Sometimes Professor Egad will tell you exactly what you have to do, and other times not so much. However, though, this is a very solid title for the Nintendo Switch. In fact, arguably one of the best games that's come out this year. I think it's a must-own for the system. I would definitely put this in the top 5 games to own for the system. And I myself, as a new Switch owner, fairly new to the system's library, this is a game I'm very glad that I got. And if you're willing to take a risk and brave the Last Resort Hotel, you're definitely going to have a fun time with Luigi's Mansion 3 by Nintendo.
News on the march!
And we are here on TWIG, the flagship of stupidity that you sail across the seas of knowledge and beyond. I'm your captain for this voyage, Mike the Birdman Dodd. Why the hell am I in charge? I'm joined with Alex the producer. Let's talk about the things that made headlines around the world this week. And this story Alex got for us this week, coming to us from Eurogamer.net. Nintendo is rumored to be considering bringing a range of canceled 3DS games to the Nintendo Switch, including a previously canceled Fire Emblem game. So in an interview with Kinda Funny, former Game Informer editor Imran Khan spoke at length about what he'd learned about Nintendo's plans, including details about the recent shuttering of Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story developer Alpha Dream after it just sold 11,000 copies in its debut month. As a result of the RPG's lukewarm sales, Nintendo reportedly scaled back on other 3DS plans, including several games that were already mid-development, such as Style Savvy and reportedly an unannounced Fire Emblem game. I know there was another Fire Emblem remake in the works for the 3DS, and that was one of the things that they shuttered. So maybe that's one of the things they'll bring forward in the future. So this is a rumor. However, the Wall Street Journal reporter Takashi, I can't pronounce this guy's last name.
Let me see. It's Takashi Mochizuki.
Made a similar claim, telling Twitter Nintendo chief help me out here. I can't pronounce.
Which one are we looking at here?
Fuakara said company
I'm
would
looking
make.
I'm looking at the article here. I'm just trying to see which one you say. Furukawa.
Yeah, so Nintendo chief Furukawa said company would make more 3DS franchises available on the Switch to convey the appeal of light. And I think that's a really good idea. If you could port more of the 3DS titles over to the Switch, I think that's a really good idea.
Well, and the thing is, if you're putting it over the Switch, if they're specifically trying to target the light, then they don't need to worry about things like rumble, which they could throw in, but they don't have to worry about rumble. They don't have to worry about any motion controls. It would save on development time by several weeks by not having to implement them. And design the games to work at 720p because they don't need to do 1080p. I mean, and then they just, upscale it when you put it in the main system. But you make them, cheap and fast conversions, and similar to the Alliance Alive. That's what they did. It was a 3DS title from Atlas. And then they ended up, I think it was NIS America put out the remastered version. And all it was all the internal stuff that was already there, just rendered at a higher resolution. And they took away the touchscreen. Boom. And it was ready to go.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing more of this. Maybe I'll jump into a Fire Emblem game at some point, as I hear Three Houses was fantastic.
It was.
And a remake of the original Fire Emblem would be a nice way to jump into it, because since I'd technically be at the beginning of the story. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
What they should do is go back to the NES and really, I think they released the original NES one on the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, one of those two.
Game Boy Advance, I think.
Yeah. They should just go and do that. Start at the beginning and give us, single or give us trilogies, especially if they don't have to go full 3D, if they want to do 2D line sprite art, but like high quality sprite art. You could do, here's the trilogy of the ones that were on the NES. Here's the trilogy of the ones that were on the Super Nintendo, and you could charge $80 then.
And people would probably pay it
because you would have 150 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, because I know there were some really good 3DS games that didn't necessarily get a port. I know one of the things they could do, and this would be a no-brainer because it would sell. You bring up the versions of the Legend of Zelda's games, A Link Between Worlds. You ported that over, that would sell.
I've never played Minish Cap or Phantom Hourglass, or was it Spirit Tracks. I never played any of those.
You're not missing much.
I think what they're going to go with first, though, is because of the success of the Link to the Past, or no, sorry, not Link to the Past, Link's Awakening. They'll probably end up going with Oracle of Ages and Seasons.
Yeah. Those are pretty solid picks.
Put them out, and don't Nintendo, don't try to milk it. You're not going to get enough money if you try to put them on two separate games, because they weren't huge games to begin with. Where you will make your money is if you put them together. Oracle of Ages and Seasons HD, complete edition. If you do that, because I'll be honest, Link's Awakening was kind of short, and there's a reason it was $10 cheap. Like it didn't retail for the full retail price. It was $49, and I think in Canada it was like $64. But you could make a full retail price, like $59 or $79 game, if you put those two together, and it would sell like crazy.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to our next story. This one, I'm actually kind of surprised, is actually moving forward. So according to superherohype.com, Showtime's Halo TV series is finally beginning filming. So a new post appeared on Instagram recently saying production on Showtime at Halo is about to begin. Halo will film in Budapest, Hungary, with Kyle Killian and Stephen Kane serving as co-showrunners and executive producers. Pablo Schreiber, who previously appeared on Orange is the New Black, will portray the Master Chief. One of the people, I'm just looking for the name here, Natasha McElhorn will actually be serving double duty for the series. She'll be portraying Dr. Catherine Halsey as well as the Master Chief's AI assistant Cortana. Although Halo is expected to offer some new characters and a fresh arc on the franchise, it will adhere to the canon of the games. Showtime President of Entertainment Gary Levine confirmed this back in August. Our challenge on this series was to take a video game and to make it into a character drama that belongs on Showtime. I'm happy to say on paper we've accomplished that, and now we're looking forward to accomplishing that on the screen, he explained at the time. He also noted the series would go for an almost R rating. However, it's going to take a while for this to come to TV, just because it's filming, there's special effects. I don't suspect we'll see this until at the earliest 2021.
Very likely, unless they want to go with a TV movie to be like an opener and then have another year off, which I think might be the smart way to go, because they could test the waters then. You've greenlit the series, do the first 2 episodes, make them into a TV movie, and then continue on if the ratings are good. When was the last time Showtime had a good show? And don't say Ray Donovan, because really nobody's watching that. They just keep renewing it for whatever reason. The last time was probably Dexter.
Yeah.
And then that went to shit. Like, they were the second premier cable provider or premium cable show provider after HBO. And then Cinemax took over with some of their action shows, and Starz basically fell apart other than having Ash vs. Evil Dead. Epix has a couple shows, but they have like the
Alfred Pennyworth series.
Yeah, that's it. But they usually only have 1 or 2 shows. Like HBO and Cinemax, which is also owned by HBO, have really been the only premium cable stuff that's been out there that's competing and beating streaming networks. So this is something that might get people interested in them again, because this is something that for years was rumored to be on Xbox. And then they were going to go, maybe another streaming service. Well, no. This is probably going to be where Showtime puts a lot of their money into, because they need to have something to compete with streaming and HBO.
You know what? I just had a thought, actually, and I doubt it's going to be this as synergist as I think it's going to be. If you could somehow tie the Halo premiere into the launch of Halo 6, when that launches next year with the Xbox Project Scarlet.
Have they said Scarlet's coming in the winter of next year? Have they said that yet?
holiday 2020.
So they said the same thing as Sony.
Yes,
or
they're going to go ahead.
Give us the first episode, or give us a prologue. Give us a half-hour prologue that sets the world up and leads into the first episode. You can film that from now until the spring and have that ready.
Absolutely. And I bet you, if they are smart, we'll see a trailer for the Halo TV series at E3 next year.
If they're smart, if they're ready, they could have the first episode be exclusive to, before it even premieres on the show, Showtime. Give us that preview, that 20-minute prologue, or give us the first episode as a download with the game.
Yeah.
Because
that'd be pretty sick.
That sort of, we talk about synergy that way. You get there's people that would already order the game. You're going to have probably 10 million people. They're probably going to sell 10 million copies of that game for holiday season. Because there's going to be a limitation on how much hardware is available, right? Like it was for anything. Because the system's not launching in the summer. If it was launching in the summer, they could have 20 million systems ready to go, but they're probably only going to have between 7 and 10 million systems. So you'll have that. You're going to have built-in people. You're going to have 10 million people that will see the first episode because you'll include it as a download. Well, that's incentive for you to subscribe to Showtime on and watch it on your Xbox.
I mean, I'd be so down with this because, the thing is, to get a video game series like Halo, considering how, Halo's been around since 2001, to get it right, especially in this format. I mean, we did have Halo Forward Unto Dawn, which was a little mini series ish that was on the Xbox. There was Halo Legends, which was an animated series of shorts.
Yeah, weren't they Machinima made or something?
Yeah, there were Machinima stuff too. To get this right on a large scale, it's taken almost 20 years. And Halo 2 just celebrated its 15th anniversary just a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
so,
wasn't James Cameron or Michael Bay or somebody attached to it initially?
I know there was some Hollywood.
It was somebody big.
I think it was Spielberg.
Spielberg, and then wasn't Neil Blomkamp attached to it, the District 9 guy, for a while? Or was that the movie?
So.
Or was that the Halo movie?
I think that was the movie, not the TV show.
Which I have a feeling that the movie, when it went into development hell, that's what's turning into the show.
Yeah, and ultimately, if the show's successful, we'll see a movie. I mean, what events it depicts, we'll have to wait and see, whether it's the first Halo game, Halo 2, Halo 3, whatever.
We're much more likely to see a Gears of War movie helmed and starring Batista before we see a Halo 1, because it's an easier one to shoot. It can be a little darker, a little grittier. It can have less tech in it, a little less special effects, way future tech stuff. And it can be done probably a little cheaper.
Although it's actually funny you mentioned the Gears of War movie. I know the Coalition director, Rod Ferguson, I think his name is, was talking about this a couple months ago, saying there is a Gears of War movie in development, but it will have nothing to do with the games or the game's canon. So we're looking at...
Then it's probably not going to star Batista. It'll probably star somebody like Vin Diesel or Jay Courtney or what's the other stupid fuck that's in all these things? Who's the guy that was in Avatar?
Sam
Worthington, yeah.
Sam something.
Worthington. One of those fucks.
Although he did say we'll see familiar characters, but if it's not going to adhere to at least the first game, what's the point? Although, whatever. We'll have to wait and see. So hopefully Halo is a success. I'm looking very, very forward to it, considering Halo 5 let me down in a big way.
And I still have to.
With Halo 6.
I still have to power through all of the games. So I've got them all. I came with my Xbox. We really have to. I have to do that before. My goal now. I tried to do it over the summer. My goal has to be.
Let's try and do it before E3.
Yeah, if I can do if I can do all of it, if I can do one Halo while I'm not doing review copies of things, if I can do one Halo per month.
Oh, that's easy. I
will be caught up completely before May, April. And, that gives me an extra week or so of leeway if one game takes longer. And I'm going to play them on stupid easy and carry forward, because I've got the complete Master Chief Collection. I even paid the extra $5 or $6 for, what was it? Was it ODST? And then I paid $9 to get the backwards compatible version of Reach. So that's everything except for the Halo Wars games, and was the Halo Spartan, the download game.
Spartan Assault, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that's really story heavy though. But and
Halo Wars is, Spartan Assault is not.
Yeah, so Halo Wars, I think the first one is included with Game Pass Ultimate. Actually, they should both be by now.
I think so. Yes.
So I can probably, with those included, I could probably get through all of the story, be completely caught up before we see the reveal at E3, and then we have plenty of time to digest I can digest all the little side things like Forward Until Dawn, all that other stuff, and be ready for holiday release.
So, hopefully, this is Alex. Hopefully, you'll do this before next E3. I will do my best to walk you through some of these games because I wouldn't mind going through the series again.
Yeah,
myself.
If I get caught, do you know if you can jump in co-op at any time, or do we have to play a co-op from the beginning together?
I don't know.
Because if we can drop in whenever, I can be like, I need help, and you can just hop in. And if not, it might be something fun for us to do. And then, whenever we do a prototype, if we get back to doing monthly prototypes, it can literally be like hey, here's how we're doing in Halo.
Yeah, here is the Halo Warfront update.
Here's the Halo 5-minute update, and that might be something fun for us to do.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, get us sort of into it, and I'm playing it on an Xbox One X, so you're really literally not going to see a better version of Halo than playing it this way right now.
Yeah. So moving on to our next story. This one comes to us courtesy of Futurism.com, and evidently killer drones are being sold. China is selling these to the Middle East. So according to this, Chinese military contractors have already started selling dangerous autonomous killer robots to customers in the Middle East. For instance, Chinese company Xi'an is actively marketing its Blowfish A3, an autonomous helicopter-like drone armed with a machine gun, to international buyers, according to Defense One. While several other countries have been working towards this tech for years, this news finally means we are living in the era of killer robots. So while Xi'an works to selling its autonomous killer robots to Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, the Chinese government is already entrenched in the killer robot trade. As we speak, the Chinese government is already exporting some of its most advanced military aerial drones to the Middle East as it prepares to export its next-generation stealth UAVs, or unmanned aerial vehicles, when those come online, said Defense Secretary Mark Esper per Defense One. In addition, Chinese weapons manufacturers are selling drones advertised as capable of full autonomy, including the ability to conduct lethal targeted strikes. While many countries support a ban on fully autonomous weapons, major military leaders like Russia and the U.S. have begun racing to develop their own killer robots. If Xi'an is telling the truth about its autonomous helicopter drones, it would send China may have won this race. So, do you want Terminators? Because this is how you get the fucking Terminator.
This is how you get, like, T001. The first one would be like a small
these
drone.
are basically HKs. Like, I'm looking at this thing.
Yeah. It's basically, it's an HK on a smaller scale. So like a HK-01 Mini or something.
I mean, I'm looking at this thing, and it's got some kind of a mounted machine gun with a big drum magazine underneath. You could mount missiles to this thing real easy.
The difference between this and an HK is this does still look like, because of the propeller system on it, you could take it down with like a regular rifle. So like hunters in the forest could take it down if they had to.
Yeah, like ultimately, aerial drones can be taken down with like small arms fire, and if not, an RPG could take it down really easy.
This is also one step away from. Did you see the new? What was it? Angel Has Fallen.
Not yet, no.
Okay, because the beginning of that movie, it's about aerial drones,
a swarm of killer drones,
but they're not machine gun drones. They're not even bomb drones. They're basically kamikaze drones. They blow themselves up by smashing into you. This is one step away from that, because it doesn't matter if you can shoot them down if their entire goal is to come at you as fast as they can and smash into you.
Wait a second. Did this happen in like Ghost Recon Breakpoint?
Yes.
Yeah, this is what happens at the beginning of that game.
Yes, and that's exactly the plot of the movie too. So
that's fucking great. So continuing on this Chinese train, This one, I had no idea this was happening. So this one comes to us courtesy of Kotaku.com. A new Chinese law went into effect last Tuesday, has placed extreme limits on screen times of the nation's youth. While everyone under the age of 18 is now restricted from playing video games for longer than 90 minutes a day or between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. As the New York Times reports, Chinese National Press and Publication Administration announced the changes earlier this week, which are aimed at addressing issues like video game addiction, nearsightedness, and poor academic performance across a broad swath of society. The curfew times apply 7 days a week, while the 90-minute time limit applies Monday through Friday. On weekends, kids will be allowed 3 hours per day. They'll also have to sign up for online gaming accounts using their real names and identification.
So basically, this doesn't work because all they have to do is go offline and spoof it on like whatever consoles they want. Like it's only going to affect online gaming.
It also gets weirder too. Besides the stuff controlling the amount of time they spend in front of a screen, an additional measure is aimed at tackling the amount of money spent on DLC and microtransactions.
So, sorry, but I find that really, really funny that they're the country they don't care how many Westerners they fuck over with stealing their money, but
like Tencent, etc.
Exactly, but Tencent, when they market to their own country, won't be allowed to do that. Meaning they know it's gambling and addiction. You could just use this. You could use their policy as, well, it's quite clear it's gambling and addictive and shouldn't be sold to children because the country producing the games that does that is making it illegal in their own country.
So according to this, there will now be a hard limit of between $28 and $57 a month users are able to spend on items, which scales depending on how old the player is. That's kind of crazy, just to think this being implemented on a national scale.
But again,
I mean, good luck enforcing it.
No, but this is again, it's going to be, this is adding fuel to the fire for anybody bringing lawsuits against like EA. Like, and how EA's been going on this campaign worldwide to like say it's not gambling.
It's surprise mechanics.
Well, the country whose model you're copying is now banning it within their own country.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing that gets me, it's the amount of screen time. Like, how are they going to enforce that?
They're going to make you have to log in, and your account will automatically just log you out. And they're going to make it so that, like, you know how you have a Steam account? They're going to make it so that to even access any games whatsoever in their country, which they can do with certain systems and certain phones, how they lock down their cell phones there, they'll literally make it where it tracks your time and it tracks your age with real time stuff. And if you're lying about it, let's say you lie about your age, that's jail time. And that's not a fun jail to go to.
No.
Especially if you're a kid, because they'll take your parents and put them in jail for letting you do that. So that's how they're going to be enforcing it through fear. And anybody that doesn't believe me, go read up on it. They'll enforce it through fear, because there's nothing scarier than my parents were taken away and now I have to go into some sort of foster care because I was bad on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, this is scary. It's hard to believe, in my opinion, this is happening in 2019.
The only way around it is that they're going to be illegally importing American and international products to use. Like, they'll actually go out of their way to buy a phone that was made in China but sold to the West because it won't have the software on it, to then import it back into China so they can play. But even then, their internet tracks what you do. So they'll still see that their internet access is up. So all it would take is somebody to do an inquiry as to why is their internet access up. Oh, it's accessing servers in China that are gaming servers for that long? Well, now you're in trouble, because now you're using a piece of hardware that isn't even legal in the country, and you're using our service for longer than you should. So what they're going to do is they're going to implement things like IP bans. They'll ban your IP after a certain amount of time of use. I
don't like the way the world's going. And I know it's a minor gripe, but the fact that this is now government.
It's government in a communist country. So
yeah,
keep an eye on it, because you don't want companies moving that way. And companies in the West wouldn't move that way unless forced to.
Because there's too much money to be made. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's going to do it for the news we had this week. So hopefully you've had a chance to enjoy this. As always, we do welcome your feedback at thisweekingeek.net. We're going to take a small break here on the show, and Alex is going to take a look at the Nintendo Online service and maybe some of the offerings you might have missed up on the first time round.
The Nintendo Online service has been out for a little over a year now, and at a year out, I wanted to sort of give a look at what has changed and what they've added, and maybe, give a bit of critique here and there of what I see could be used to improve it. I'll say this right off the top, that it is much more robust than it was when it first launched, because I was one of the people that got it, day one, because I was like, why not? It was fairly cheap. Now, since then, we've gone from having basically just the ability to play first-party titles and some other titles online to having in-game voice chats through that app that, let's be honest, the best left not talked about too much, because having to have a separate app versus in-game chat built into the system is been a bit of contention amongst most players. That probably will change in the future, but right now, as we know, in-game chat is just not any good. But that being said, things are changing a little bit, because you can buy third-party controllers now from PDP that have headphone jacks in the bottom that also work with headsets. So certain games, if a game individually supports in-game chat, you can do it through there as long as you're paying for the online service to have online play in the first place. So that's pretty cool. So I have a feeling eventually it's going to work itself out. The big feature that launched partially after, and they've continued to sort of refresh it on a couple times a month, once a month sort of basis, is the ability to add NES games to the service, where sort of like a replacement for the Virtual Console, only they'll give you a set amount of games at once. Everybody sort of played, I think, the first batch of them. But they've been pretty consistent, adding about 5 or 6 titles per month, with some SP ones or special editions, which have sort of hacks and cheats applied to them, as well as challenge modes and so on and so forth. And they've been pretty cool, but to be honest, most people are probably tired of seeing the same NES games over and over and over again, which has been a big complaint from a lot of people, including myself, where it's like we've seen those released over and over and over. And if you have the NES Classic, you pretty much have most of those games anyway. Now, the big change that happened this year was the addition after the 1-year anniversary of Super Nintendo games, which is a nice breath of fresh air. Hopefully in the future we get more and more titles released for it, but as of right now, they launched a whole bunch in September, and I'm hoping they put out more. But it was a pretty good variety too. There's some RPGs in there like Breath of Fire. There were things like Kirby's Dream Land 3, some late titles for the system, as well as some fan favorites like Link to the Past, as well as the Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, which, upon original release, people were complaining about it being, it's the whiny Mario baby game, except that it ended up having some of the best graphics and best gameplay on the system. So, it really shows that hindsight's 2020, eh? Now, there's Super Defense Earth Force, which is pretty sweet. There's Pilot Wing, Star Fox, and Joe Mac 2, F-Zero, sort of everything you'd want to get out of there. Now, on top of that, you have occasionally offers for some promotional items for in-game currencies in certain games. I've not taken advantage of that because I'm not really somebody who plays games that use an in-game currency or take advantage of that in the first place, because I'm just not... generally the games that use those are not kind of games that I play. So, it is what it is. Now, there's also exclusive things. Sometimes when a new game will come out, there might be a demo or two or something that shows off a little more than what you get if you're not a subscriber. You can actually access them if you go into the menu for on the eShop or the Nintendo shop for it. It'll show you all the different extra little things you can download. Some of them are extra in-game currency, some of them are extra demos or videos that are only exclusive to Nintendo Online subscribers. And there's also free additional games, like there's the Nintendo Tetris 99, which so far has been the only major exclusive. I predict it'll be probably more like that. Maybe they'll release something like a Dr. Mario in the future or something, but it's not bad, especially considering that when you pay for the other online services for your other major companies like Sony and Xbox, you're paying a lot more. Like you'll pay, for instance, I have a Game Pass Ultimate. I'm paying $16.99 per month for that service, and you don't actually get a discount if you're paying for a whole year up front. With Nintendo, you're paying a few bucks more than that for an entire year's worth of service. So it sort of balances itself out that way. I'm pretty impressed with it so far. There's a decent amount of Super Nintendo games that have been added, but I do think they're going to start adding more and more stuff in the future. The price may eventually go up, but right now it's actually a really good, really good value, especially when you consider that Pokemon is coming out. And there's some major releases that are going to take advantage of this in the future. So if you're a Smash Brothers fan, or if you're a Pokemon fan, you're probably going to want to spend the extra money and get the online service, because otherwise, what's the fun of playing a huge multiplayer game if you can't play multiplayer? And then you get all these little bonuses. I've taken advantage personally of the cloud save feature, where it allows you to back up all your save files, because I also just picked up the Pokemon Switch Lite. And so it's my second system. So how do you transfer saves? Traditionally with Nintendo handhelds, you had no ability to do that unless you were replacing a system. You couldn't transfer a save between them. This allows it. You sign in with your same account, it adds it to your Nintendo account, and it becomes your secondary system, meaning every time you load a game, it will do a quick 1 or 2 second check just to see, like, are you authorized to play this game? And then it checks your account, and it's like, oh, you are. And then you load in, and it allows you to go into the system settings and download every single save file you have on your main console. So that way I can actually share saves between the system that I take primarily with me on the go because it's super portable and has better battery life, and the system that I leave at home plugged into my TV. So it is kind of funny that the Switch Lite is labeled as a Switch when it really should be like, I don't know, the Nintendo Game Boy again. But that feature of having cloud saves and being able to transfer my saves between systems has been a huge boon, and it's going to allow me to not have to play multiple playthroughs on different systems just to get to the same spot that I was already at. So that feature alone is worth the $20-ish or so for me. Now, for everybody else, your mileage may vary, but if you're somebody who's picking up a Switch Lite as an extra system and not as your primary, it's very much going to be essential to have the online service to get the cloud save gameplay.
What makes you qualified to be a reporter? I'm willing to violate anyone's privacy for my personal gain and then claim with a straight face that the public has a right to know.
By the hand of Zeus, what manner of deviltry is this?
I love fake alien poop day.
We are here on This Week in Geek, otherwise known as TWIG, and it's now time to take a look at the weird, the wacky, the just plain fucked up things that happened on this big blue marble we happen to call Earth as we float through the cosmos. And, well, I've run out of dramatic things to say now. So, let's talk about our first fucked up item this week. This one I saw on Twitter, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it, so I had to do a little bit more research into it. So, coming from the AV Club, do you remember in the 90s when Joe Pesci released a song called Wise Guy?
I might have heard rumors of it, but I don't remember seeing it or hearing it.
So evidently it's been 21 years since Joe Pesci released Vincent LaGuardia Gambini Sings Just For You. And it was weird, to say the very least. However, it was strange, considering he raps about basically being a wise guy character. So it was weird. So because he's in The Irishman, which comes out pretty soon, I want to say within the next couple weeks, there's going to be a new album coming out on November 29th called Still Singing. It's going to be a 13-track album which will feature contributions from Adam Levine, jazz vocalist Jimmy Scott, jazz trumpeter Arturo Sandoval, and you can actually hear the first single, Baby Girl, which features Levine, on Spotify, if you are so curious. I need more Joe Pesci rapping in my life than I thought I really initially thought.
I'm hoping it's as close to... Well, it'll never be quite as good as the Macho Man rap album, But I'm hoping it's as good as any of the 6 releases that we got from Shaq. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah, it's so weird when people who are actors or people in public personas just randomly decide, hey, I need to do an album for some bizarre reason. Like, I didn't believe you for the longest time about the Macho Man album.
Yeah,
and,
no, we had it in high school, and we couldn't, we were sharing, during the Napster days, we were sharing it like crazy because one guy found a copy at a local CD store. I remember we were sharing it amongst everybody, and it became like the unofficial anthem of our youth. It was Toxicity. What was it? Toxicity, 50 Cents in the Club, and Macho Man, Be a Man Hulk.
oh my God.
I'm not kidding. Like, ironically, but like a teacher's like, you guys actually like this? And we're like, yes. And we start killing ourselves laughing. And like the teachers got it eventually. They're like, what? Like, because we had teachers that were like, all rap is crap. But then those same teachers ended up liking the album because of how insanely stupid it was. And we're like, why? Well, it's Macho Man. Come on.
I'm trying to think of other really bizarre examples. I mean, other classic examples I can think of really weird celebrities is everybody's heard of the Bill Shatner albums and Mr. Tambourine Man.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy and the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins is another notably weird one.
Christopher Lee's heavy metal career.
Yep. There is an album. It's what the hell was it? It's all heavy metal songs, but they're done by like Pat Boone or something. I can't remember what.
Was it?
You know what I'm talking about.
TV's Mr. Neil mentioned.
Yeah.
Was it? Oh, I've been drawing a blank. I don't think it's Pat Boone. Is it Pat Boone? It's one of those guys, like one of the old country singers or something, and it's like crooner covers of heavy metal songs.
And
out
it's
of nowhere.
So out there. Yeah, like I remember mentioning it to Jackie Bam Bam from 93.3 WMMR, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I play this on my show every now and again." And I got to thinking,
it is Pat Boone in a metal mood. No more Mr. Nice Guy.
That's so friggin' strange.
With you've got another. Here are the songs. You got another thing coming from Judas Priest, Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple. It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll. AC/DC, Panama, Van Halen, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Alice Cooper, Love Hurts from Nazareth, Enter Sandman by Metallica, Holy Diver by Dio. That's the peak of the album, by the way. Paradise City from Guns N' Roses, The Wind Cries Mary, Jimi Hendrix Experience. That's one that you could actually do in his style because it's a slower moving song. Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne and Stairway to Heaven by Zeppelin. You have to, after you listen to this show, go and look up Holy Diver Pat Boone. It is fantastic. And if you're unfamiliar with Dio's work, watch or listen to the Dio song or watch the music video and then listen to his. It's hilarious.
I think there was also a cover by Killswitch Engage too.
But that's not as funny as Pat Boone.
It's not funny. It's cool, but the Pat Boone version
not
is
just
funny.
That, it's Pat Boone in 1997.
Which clearly this guy had a sense of humor about himself.
Well, especially since he was in his 60s when he did it.
Yeah.
He was like 62 or 63. This guy who's like known for like traditional pop, country, and gospel music and vocal jazz. And if you look up his like discography history, it's pop, traditional pop, country, gospel, vocal jazz, and heavy metal.
It's so strange. So moving on to my next strange story. Well, if you happen to live in the United States, this past week you might have gotten a text message, and it may have been unusually romantic for this time of year. So last week, people had reported they had been receiving text messages that were sent on or around Valentine's Day this year. The people that never received the text messages in the first place, the people who had sent the text messages had no idea they'd never been received, and they did nothing to attempt to resend them overnight. So according to these delayed messages, they were sent by both iPhones and Android phones, and they seem to be across all major carriers in the U.S. Many of them involve T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, and Verizon, although people using regional carriers in the U.S. and even some up here in Canada, even Google Voice, were experiencing some delays. So according to this, occurs to be a system error, according to Sprint. Sprint person said a maintenance update last night caused the error. The issue was resolved not long after it occurs. We apologize for any confusion this may have occurred. T-Mobile blamed the issue on a third-party vendor. It didn't clarify what company that was or what service they provided. We're aware of this, and it is resolved. A company named Cineverse, which provides networking services, later took blame for the messages being delayed. Cineverse said a single server was at fault. That server failed on February 14th, trapping messages waiting to be sent out. The server was only brought back online November 7th. When that happened, all the messages were finally delivered. Synergy initially published a vote saying that 168,149,000 delayed messages were sent. A spokesperson later told The Verge that the company is still assessing the scope and volume of messages impacted by the server disruption. I think that's kind of a cute story because randomly you'll just get a I love you or just other strange kind of messages just about 10 months later than when you should have got them. But that's kind of funny though, I thought. It's weird. Some of the other ones is this one I'm just going to read here. One person said they received a message from an ex-boyfriend who had died. Another received a message from a best friend who's now dead. It was a punch in the gut. Honestly, I thought I was dreaming, and for a second I thought she was still here, said the one person. The last few months haven't been easy, and just when I thought I was getting some type of closure, this just ripped open a new hole. I never even considered that. Another person... Barbara Cole, who lives in California, said she received an old message from her sister saying their mom was upbeat and doing well. She knew the message must have been sent before her mother died in June, but it was still shocking to receive. I hadn't stopped thinking about that message since I got it. I'm out looking at the ocean right now because I needed a break. Another person said a text message was sent in February, was received at 5 a.m. by someone who's now her ex-boyfriend. The result was a lot of confusion. But it was actually kind of nice that it opened up a short conversation. What say you?
Well, it's not the first time that that's happened. You've heard of weird messages, or even have you heard of it where people have received like answering machine messages on their cell phones that were stuck in the system until people were in like a car crash and they received their message after they were dead already?
Well, yeah. Like, this just sounds to me like just a regular tech glitch. I mean, this always happens around New Year's Eve, or it always happens around Christmas time. Anytime
there's a big volume of messages. Same with like Americans and like 4th of July. Anytime that there is a major holiday, the texting servers get backlogged, especially for people in rural areas where you're still running off of like the 2G or even like the first generation edge networks.
Mm-hmm.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy. I mean, I could see sometimes maybe you'll get a nice message, but if you don't think about it right away, especially because odds are these messages aren't dated, they just appear in your phone. In fact, I've never really looked about that, whether messages are dated. They're dated when you receive them, not when they're sent. So... yeah, it'd be kind of weird to get a message from your ex saying, "Hey, I love you." It's like 5 o'clock in the morning on November, whatever.
It's not like an email where an email would have a timestamp.
Yeah, and it strikes me as kind of weird. This server has been offline for so long, and they only just decided to switch it back on now. Yikes. But I guess they fixed it, and it was a third-party vendor, so AT&T Sprint are like, not my problem. So... good for them.
Now, what I hope is that anybody that received like 100 messages isn't still on a plan that charges you for receiving messages.
Yeah.
That should, and I'm assuming, as bad as some of these companies can be, I'm pretty sure they would waive any fees based on this issue.
Mm-hmm. So, hopefully you got a nice message if you were one of these people and it wasn't confusing or scary, especially if it was from a dead person. But let's move on to happier topics because we're going to end this one on kind of a down note. But this one is pretty cool. So, Alex, you remember the X-Men animated series from 1992, right?
Yep, it was probably... I think I saw this before... yeah, it was before Spider-Man came out. That was, like 93 or 94? Something around that?
92.
Was it 92? Really?
Yep, Spider-Man was 94.
Okay, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah.
So-
So this was probably my first introduction to the X-Men before I played any games or anything.
Yeah, this was also mine too. This is kind of what got me into the comics. My first comic was the Jim Lee #1 X-Men cover that everybody knows from the 1990s, the comic books, the cards, it was Marvel Mania. So anyway, one of the characters from that show, everybody loves the character of Rogue, sexy Southern belle who stole the powers of Miss Marvel, whose mom is Mystique, and her past is thoroughly screwed up, but the character's pretty awesome. She can kick the crap out of a Sentinel all by herself. Cool, right?
Yes.
Well,
Where are you leading this?
well, do you realize she's now a liberal? She's a liberal MP in Ottawa now. So, actor turned politician Lenore Zahn is finding a second act in politics, just as one of her most well-known roles finds a second life on the streaming screen, as Disney Plus comes live tomorrow for the US and Canada, as well as a few other places. Zahn, a longtime New Democrat MLA from Nova Scotia, arrived in Ottawa this week as a newly elected Liberal MP. So, yeah, she voiced the character of Rogue in X-Men, the animated series. And she goes on to say...
She's all about sharing the powers and the wealth.
I like this. So she goes on to say, it seems as if all the experiences I had in both of my careers are now coming together at the same time. She said, the character I played, who was and is the strongest woman in the universe, is now coming together with the second woman in history to be sent to Ottawa to represent my riding. I think it shows that a woman that's coming into her own and embracing her own strength and powers, but is still going it alone. I think it's pretty cool. And then the article from the Toronto Star goes on to say that Zahn is, however, not a mutant. She cannot fly, nor can she absorb a person's psyche and abilities through skin contact. She grew up in Truro, Nova Scotia, rather than on the run from the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. That's kind of cool. And not the first time a X-Men celebrity has been in the news recently. I know in Mississauga this past weekend, Allison Court, who played Jubilee on that show, was just recently at a toy collector show in Mississauga, which I think is kind of cool. I talked with her on Twitter. We interviewed her on TWIG years ago, where I called it a conversation with Allison Court. And she was a wonderful interview. And now that Zahn, or Zane, however you want to pronounce her name, is now a Liberal MP, well, getting her for an interview is going to be near impossible. Now she has a political career to worry about, but hopefully she'll serve her new constituents well. I imagine any nerds in her riding are probably sending her X-Men themed thank you letters, and I think it'd be kind of cool if just for a joke, if she had official kind of letterhead that was from Professor Xavier's School of Gifted Youngsters. I think that'd be kind of cool.
I mean, it would even just like a little, or even like an X-Men, like lapel pin or something.
Yes, if she wore that on Parliament Hill, that'd be so badass.
Like think about it, like Parliament Hill should have like the one representing your riding, have one for X-Men, and then have one for like LGBT, because it's pretty much what X-Men was. Sort of have that tied together, or have an X-Men one that's in the rainbow or something.
You know what would be really sick? And this is just me fanboying for a moment. If she told somebody off during question period in the Rogue voice, I might die a little bit inside, because that'd be so cool to hear. Anyway, this last story is kind of a sad one. I became aware of this guy watching a couple documentaries. I've seen him on Jimmy Kimmel Live a couple of different times. Hollywood Boulevard impersonator is dead at 52. So Christopher Dennis, who's better known as the Superman on Hollywood Boulevard for more than 25 years, has unfortunately passed away. Dennis was found dead last Saturday in the San Fernando Valley. We're told his body was discovered lying headfirst in a bin that was used for clothing donations. Investigators believe Christopher, who was homeless at the time, was attempting to gather clothes for himself. However, according to TMZ, no foul play is suspected.
You think he just banged his head?
Probably, or maybe he was hurt or something, because those bins, and it's funny because you always hear about this every couple of years. Whenever people try and get inside those bins for whatever reason, they get trapped or they get hurt. So
There's also
it's not unusual.
No foul play, but what they haven't released is if there was any substances involved. So it could be, I mean, being on the street. It could even be like, even if he wasn't a user, it could be something like he pricked something or did something or nicked something when he went into the bin. Because it's an epidemic out there.
It really is. I mean, the short time I spent out in Hollywood, there were just so many homeless people, and it's obviously not their fault.
It's like 2 or 3 times that now in the last 10 years.
Yes, absolutely. And it's kind of sad because this guy had been doing this for, like I said, 25 years. He's been in a couple of different documentaries. He was a victim of an assault a while back that almost killed him. And so he was rendered homeless, but thanks to a couple of friends and a Kickstarter campaign, he got a new suit that allowed him to get back on his feet and return to Hollywood Boulevard to busk and whatnot.
The only problem there is he had no safety net. So,
no,
non-taxable income, not paying into the system, it's expensive to live there. So getting just enough to make ends meet or barely enough to make ends meet, as he got older, it would have been harder and harder too. So it might have gotten to the point where he would have had to leave that life anyway.
Exactly, because you're always on that razor's edge of being able to have and have not. And it sucks though, because I've seen this guy. He's very charming. He's very believable. Like, he believed in the ideals of Superman. He had a certain resemblance to the Christopher Reeve Superman too. Like I said, he had appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live a few times. He was in the documentary Confessions of a Superhero, and that's unfortunate. He was 52 years old, and I'm not saying this to insert myself into the story, but he's one of those buskers I would like to have met on Hollywood Boulevard because I'd seen him in these documentaries, to say, hey man, you're a part of Superman's history. Pleased to meet you.
Because you knew he wasn't going to stab you or give you some sort of weird disease.
Yeah, because he's one of the cool buskers that you see out there. I mean, there's a few that I can think of. There's one guy, he dressed up as a Batman busker, and somebody broke into the back of a police car and stole like a laptop or something, and Batman tried to stop him, and Batman got his ass kicked.
Oh yeah, that was in the news was it a month ago or something?
It was a while back, but you could see Superman there. I'm pretty sure that was him, just watching, going, man, don't get involved. But yeah, it's just one of the fixtures of old Hollywood, I guess, is now gone. So hopefully the busking community does something for him, and that's unfortunate. I said Christopher Dennis, I think his name was, just to be sure. He was 52 years old. So that's unfortunately the bummer story that I have to end this weird news on. But we're going to take things with me again. We're going to take a look at 2 Sega Ages releases coming to us from M2 and Sega themselves. We'll be back right after this. We are looking at the Sega Ages collection from Sega and M2. Well, if you like these Sega Ages releases, you've got like Space Harrier, Virtua Racing, that sort of thing. Well, we got 2 ones in this particular review that, I thought I'd be looking more forward to than I originally expected, and that was Columns, specifically Columns 2, and Ichidant-R. Columns 2 is the one I'm going to talk about first, and, well, turns out this is actually an arcade game. I actually had no idea. I knew about the pack-in and just assumed it was a Tetris knockoff. Well, not really. If you play any like mobile games and there's like those Match 3 things, that's sort of where Columns kind of came from. It was like Match 3 diamonds or jewels or whatever the hell they are, and basically you can create combos, and it's pretty simple to follow through, and you'll kind of know whether you like this game or not within a couple of minutes of playing it. And yeah, it was more fun than I thought it was going to be, kind of going into it. Although, that being said, Columns 2 has something unique about it, and I really, really like this. It actually includes the Genesis version, just Columns 1, and I had a lot more fun playing that one than I did Columns 2, so it was kind of nice that they did pack these all into one particular collection here. There are some unlockables, but I suck and couldn't really get them. Like you get to see like different characters and mascots from different games as part of the jewels collection you can unlock. You can set difficulty settings. There's like a versus mode. There's like an endless thing. It's columns. What do you want? Basically, you can find clones of this on the iOS store, but if you want the true Sega experience, you can pick this up in the Sega Ages collection that is out right now. The one that really surprised me with this was Ichidant-R. And if you've never heard of that, I don't friggin' blame you. So this is an arcade port, which evidently had a Mega Drive release as well. And the best way to think about this, it's sort of like WarioWare by the way of Sega. You play as these two knights or whatever, and they're trying to rescue a princess, but you have to do puzzles in order to rescue the princess. You might have to look for patterns on a rice cracker, or you may have to sort frogs, which that one confused me for like a few seconds, and then I finally got it. It's basically shuffling things around to put the big frog on the bottom, then the middle frog on the top, but you kind of get the idea there. The one that got me surprisingly, not confused, but I got frustrated with, just because I assumed I should be able to do it really easy, was where you have to count people on a subway train, and I'd always be off by one because it goes by so quick. Yeah, that was fun. Or there's like dancing monkeys and other things. It's weird, and you only get a couple seconds to do it, but thanks to the game's settings, you can give yourself a little bit extra time. You can set it to a different difficulty mode. Yeah, Ichidant-R was a lot of fun, actually. I'm more surprised how much fun I had with it originally expecting. So out of all these Sega Ages games, I'd have to recommend Ichidant-R if you're going to pick up anything. So Sega and M2 have really done a fantastic job here. And if you're going to check out these two games, out of the two, between Columns 2, if you were a big fan of Columns back in the day, maybe pick it up. Although you could pick up a version probably on your device of choice. Although, if you're going to pick up something for your Switch, then I cannot recommend Ichidant-R enough. We, of course, thank you for joining us here on TWIG this past week. I was actually just saying to Alex off air, I feel good, Silent Bob. This has been a good show, despite ending on kind of a downer there. No, I've actually, all things considered, it's been good today. I feel good. Before the show started, I played a really good game of COD. I went 21-15. Really pissed off one kid as I kept killing the Kingslayer in my lobby. So obviously I'm still playing COD. Alex, however, is not.
Nothing against it. It's just it took up a lot of space on my hard drive.
Yeah, that I don't blame you.
130 gigs. I'm like, oh man, and I have all those the Halo games and the Gears of War games. If I have all of those installed, like everything that came with my system, that's 80% of my hard drive. Because like each game's like 100 gigs now.
Yeah, that's true. And I've got like a 2 terabyte drive hooked up in addition to my drive.
I just have the 1 terabyte internal, and because it's playing on the Xbox One X, it downloads the 4K textures, which are slightly bigger. So like, where certain games, like some of the Halo games, like on your system would be like 75 gigs, they're 80 or 90 on mine.
Actually, weird update. I was actually playing COD last night with Handsome Tom for a little bit. That was kind of fun. So yeah, that was kind of random and just a nice little hey. So anyway, coming up on the show next week, we're going to have our review of Death Stranding. We're also going to look at the Cyberpunk Red box set from Artel Saurian. And I think, what else are we going to have next week?
Star Trek Discovery Season 2 on Blu-ray. And then sometime during this week, either Thursday or Friday, depending on when everything gets recorded, we'll have another turd episode with a bunch of stuff. Some movies that we've had ready, it's just finding time to get them out, as well as I'll have the Roku Streaming Stick Plus on there, which is the highest end one released this year, because that came in a little bit later than the other two devices to me for review. I'm working on a review for a Skull Candy, a completely wireless Bluetooth noise canceling earbuds. What do you have in your bag of tricks?
I have a Dungeons and Dragons book I need to talk about. I have The Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Complete Series on Blu-ray from Paramount. I have some books from DK Publishing I need to talk about. And I think that's it off the top of my head. Oh, I also have Aladdin and The Lion King, that retro collection that got released a little while ago.
That's cool. I didn't get a chance to see that. It looks pretty good from what I've seen.
Yeah, I'm surprised you get Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Gear, and Game Boy versions.
So you can swap between each of them. That's neat. As far as other shows this week, I believe either later on today or sometime tomorrow, we're recording at least the new Mayhem mics, and I believe if my notes with the other guys are correct, it's the post show to our top 100 wrestlers, sort of where we talk about what missed it and sort of the roundtable discussion on that. Do we have? We've also got a syndicated episode of Nerd of the Third that should come out sometime this week. We'll place it in there. Do you have a new Nerd episode coming out, do you think, this week?
This week I think we're off due to Remembrance Day, and then I think next week
we'll put in the syndicated one from last week then.
Yeah, that'll be the death of physical media.
Yeah.
And as we move towards kind of streaming things, what's the future of
Do
physical
we have
media?
anything with Geekcast that we're doing this week? Are we doing an Altered Geek, or are we doing a...
that all depends
Future
on
Perfect?
producer Steve, if he finds the time. So hopefully we'll be doing more of those as the year begins to round out. I know I'm recording some D&D stuff with the Nerd of the Third people towards the end of the month. So that'll be out next year, but we're recording it now, so something to look forward to.
And this coming weekend, we should have New Cambridge Chronicles on Twitch.
Yes, so that will be Saturday night at around 9-ish Eastern Standard Time, which is, what is it, twitch.tv/Terrible Warriors?
Yeah, and of course, it'll be pimped out on all of our social media.
Yeah, so as we go towards the town of Magnetawan near North Bay, as we infiltrate the estate of Dr. Michael Scott and the drone technology that he's hiding. So good times to be had by all. So until next time, we have been...
Alex.
I've been Mike the Birdman Dodds. Live free or die hard. And as my friend Jackie Bam Bam might say, be cool, be kind, be careful. We'll catch you again next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Well, that's our show.
All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at ThisWeekInGeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
Lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.